We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita. Welcome to Dr. Frita Live, where we discuss the latest trending medical headlines and celebrity health news. I have a show for you today because you know there's so much going on with the medical headlines. Let's talk about the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, because he had his annual visit. This is his third annual visit in 13 months. He went to Walter Reed to get his checkup. And according to Trump, he is perfectly healthy. And he's been bragging about his cognitive tests. But there's a little piece that he's missing. So today we'll talk about cognitive tests, what they actually measure and what they miss. And then, of course, we're talking about Ebola. Sadly, the Ebola outbreak, the epidemic is continuing to spread. And the United States had plans to build a quarantine unit in Kenya. According to Secretary Marco Rubio, we cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola into the United States. And so the plan was for if we had United States citizens who became infected with Ebola, we were going to just ship them over to Kenya in our 50-bed quarantine unit. Well, there's just one little problem. Kenya said no. The High Court in Kenya has at least temporarily halted it. And so we're going to talk about it. Is it the best thing for United States citizens to go to Kenya, or should we repatriate them, bring them back home where we have arguably the best technology and care here? We'll talk about it. And then we'll get into my favorite game. Y'all know my favorite game, myth versus fact. Now, with this game, we're talking about something that's actually quite serious. We're talking about race car driver Kyle Busch, who passed away at the age of 41. We now have the cause of his passing away. And so we're going to talk about pneumonia and sepsis, okay? Because that's what took him. And we'll take this sad story for him and his young family and use it as a point for us to learn. And then we'll move into the second dose, your second weekly dose of trending medical headlines and celebrity health news with Ray J. You got love for Ray J? Well, just months ago, Ray J announced that he only had months to live. And then he was in an MMA fight, mixed martial arts, where he got knocked out. So let's talk about what's really going on with Ray J. There's a lot there. And then we'll talk about former U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi. You remember her from the hearing. The Dow is at 50,000. Well, she actually was diagnosed with thyroid cancer shortly after she was fired from her position. And so we'll talk about thyroid cancer, the prognosis, the types, and really let you know what you need to know. She has had surgery. She is recovering. And we'll talk about one of my favorite housewives of all time, Cynthia Bailey of Real Housewives of Atlanta, because she's coming clean and sharing some struggles she had with menopause related weight gain. It's a real thing. So please go ahead and give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe if you have not already. And we're about to have a good time talking about evidence-based medical information. I'm Dr. Frita. Let's get this thing started. I'm Dr. Frita. This is Dr. Frita Live. To everyone who was here in the chat, to all of my med heads, I'm sorry that we kept you waiting longer than earlier today. We had some technical issues. Please forgive me, and I will make it up to you with a very great show starting right now. And you know I'm not having this great show by my great self. I'm going to have my great co-host, Miss Shador, to come to the front of the stage. Shador, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Dr. Frita. How are you? How's everyone?
You know we got it all going on. We got it all going on. But did you have a pretty good weekend?
Oh yeah, pretty good weekend.
Good.
Nothing pretty eventful that I can think of. So yeah, no
Look,
complaints.
non-eventful is good. I had a basketball-filled weekend. Gregory had a tournament Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Games that were an hour away. I'm not going to complain, but it was really neat. He did well, and he actually played up. He played up with the 10th graders. And y'all know, all of my basketball IQ has come through whatever I've gotten through my kids. I didn't play basketball growing up, didn't watch basketball. That's just the real story. But I am learning it's just neat watching him. He grew like 6 inches over the last year, and he's at that age, 15, where boys just start to really get exponentially just stronger and faster. And it's just amazing watching his transformation from last season to this season. And Shador, that boy can jump. Like, I look, and even when boys are taller than he is, I'm like, oh, that's my baby's head. And then some other moms who were just meeting him, they're like, is that your son? They're like, he can jump. And so it's funny when you start to learn what's like a pretty, okay, average, decent talent versus, oh, he's really got something. I said, Gregory, do you know you could just about fly? You know you could jump? Yeah. That was his response. That's his response to most things. Ma, what we gonna eat? But anyway, so it was just a neat little personal revelation, and just being proud of my kid. And then my oldest girl is at FAMU because it's Marching 100's anniversary today. June 1st is when they were founded. I believe 1946. Uh-oh, do I have my FAMU history? Anybody who went to FAMU, let me know if I'm right. Anyway, but she's down there. And Avery's just kind of chilling. And that's what we got going on. But you know who's not chilling? The president, Donald Trump. Who was the first person in the chat today, Shador?
First in the chat today. And chat, let me know how I'm coming across technical difficulties again. Miss Aileen's first in the chat, Dr. Frita.
Hi, Miss Aileen. Welcome. Glad to have you. All right, get your thinking cap ready like you always have it.
Yeah, and we got some new members.
Oh, yay. Welcome, members.
Shout out to Marva.
Hi, Marva. Thank you for joining the membership. Listen, go check it out if you haven't already. Your members only videos. Gosh, I did some over this weekend. I talked about, I like my healthy habits quick tip that I did. But just, check out that. And then for the members who joined at the chief resident level, today, immediately following the live, we have our members only live Q&A, where instead of me doing all my yapping, I listen and I answer your questions. And for those of you who are new to us who are here, I am Dr. Frita. I'm a medical doctor. I have been quadruple board certified. I'm a board certified nephrologist, meaning I'm a kidney doctor and high blood pressure doctor. I'm board certified in internal medicine. I'm board certified in obesity medicine. And after I completed my dual internal medicine pediatrics residency at Georgetown University Hospital School of Medicine, I earned my board certification in pediatrics. And so I love to learn, and more importantly, I like to share. Sharing is caring. And so if you would like to join our membership, especially at the chief residence level, then hey, it's not too late. Click the link in the description, go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. And today, immediately following this live, we have a live Q&A, members only, where you can just ask me whatever you want. Ask me whatever you want, and I'll answer. All right. So thank you to all of our members. Thank you to all of our med heads. Thank you for all social media platforms. And thank you to the replay crew. I see you. All right, let's jump on in, everybody. Jump on in. Donald Trump. He had his third visit. And for those of you, who didn't get a chance to see, I was on Don Lemon just this past week talking about his visit and, some of the speculations about his health, plus some of the things that have been just visually observed. Well, Trump himself said that everything went perfectly. He bragged about his cognitive test that he had, said he got a perfect score. He bragged and said that, other presidents like President Obama, President Bush, he said they never took the test, and how he even has in the past stated how the members of the press corps probably couldn't pass. He said it's a very difficult test. He goes on and on and on. Well, we'll play this clip, and when we come back, I'll tell you the truth about the cognitive test he took, what the cognitive test actually does test for, and what it totally misses. All right.
Reed Medical Center, the third trip in 13 months. What the president said today after his medical evaluation. It comes amid questions over bruising on his hands and swelling around his ankles. This medical exam also coming amid talks to end the war in Iran. After negotiators arrived in Qatar, hours later, the U.S. bombing southern Iran. And what Iran is now saying tonight, vowing retaliation. Rachel Scott at the White House for us.
Tonight, President Trump leaving Walter Reed Medical Center after a 3-hour visit, his third in the last 13 months, declaring himself in good health. The White House says he underwent routine annual dental and medical assessments as part of his regular preventative health care. President Trump, who will turn 80 in June, writing on social media, everything checked out perfectly. But tonight, no further details from the president's doctor. It comes amid questions about the president's health. photos showing bruising on his hands, which he has been covering with makeup. The White House has said it's from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin. President Trump has also been
that's good.
legs, which the president.
All right. So let me talk to you about this cognitive test that the president states that he got a perfect score on. And in the chat, I want you to give me a brain emoji and answer this question. What do you think are some early signs of cognitive decline? What do you think are some early signs of cognitive decline? Okay, so the president says, oh yeah, I got to, they keep having me do these tests and I do them and I ace them every time. I get a perfect score. It's hard to do, and the test is hard and all of these things. And let me tell you about this cognitive test that he takes. It's called the MoCA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. The MoCA test is not an IQ test, okay? So when he talks about these cognitive tests that he has, his IQ is not being tested. It's not an intelligent test, okay? Trust me. What it is it is a 10-minute clinical assessment. It's just one page. It covers 30 areas. And here's what it tests for. Not IQ. It's testing to see if you have early cognitive decline or early stage dementia. Why do we do this cognitive test? Well, I can tell you, when I was in residency, when I used to perform them rather frequently, I would only do them for patients when I was suspecting some type of a cognitive decline, patients who were showing signs of dementia, or perhaps patients who themselves felt like they were forgetting things, or they had family members who were complaining. So I would only do the test when I was suspicious that there could be dementia or cognitive decline. It's not a test of intelligence. And so when he starts listing presidents like President Obama, oh, he never had to take the test. Well, that likely means that no one suspected cognitive decline in President Obama. Okay. And so when I see President Trump, bragging on this test and he loves to call people low IQ, I actually get a little embarrassed for him because the test is quite simple. And let me tell you what it entails. So I already told you it's a one-page test. Okay. We're not talking about a long drawn out 3-hour test. It's a one-page 10-minute assessment. And it covers issues like memory, visual, spatial ability, language. It will have you to do things like draw the face of a clock. It'll tell you what time. Like I might say, draw a clock for 3 o'clock, and so you have to know where to put the short hand and the long hand. It will have you to name animals. And I'm not talking about some exotic creatures from beyond that no one's heard of. I'm talking about a horse, a tiger, a duck, really common animals. So being able to name those will get you points on the test. It might ask you to name a lot of words that start with a particular letter. Like they might say, hey, name as many words as you can that start with the letter P. And you have to just name them. That gives us, another ability to assess your cognitive function. You might have to count backwards or count backwards in sevens. They will give you words. They might list 5 simple words, state them twice, and then come back later and you have to recall them. So they're asking for memory, for recall. So it's those types of things. And the average person with a healthy brain, not a genius, not a stable genius, just people who do not have cognitive decline or dementia are expected to pass this test. 30 is the maximum score. A 26 out of 30, you're considered, at least by this test, to not be showing signs of early cognitive decline or dementia. Now, it's just a cursory test. It's just kind of a real superficial, simple test. Even if you do well in the test, that does not necessarily mean that you don't have dementia, because there are much larger, more detailed batteries of tests to truly give you a full evaluation to see if you have dementia. So my point is, the way that the president loves to come and say, oh, I keep passing these tests and oh, they're so hard. And he's bragging as if he's taking a neuroscience board exam. It's a very, very, very simple test if you don't have dementia, if you don't have cognitive decline. And so he's bragging on a test that for most people is extremely simple. And I don't know why he's bragging. But I do want to know what you all think, med heads. What are some early signs of cognitive decline?
Remember Miss Sheila?
I'm Miss Sheila.
She says, I believe President Trump never rests for his body to heal himself and his brain.
And that's possible because getting good rest is very important in order to be able to sleep well. In fact, listen, check out after we're finished with this live, go to my playlist right here on YouTube and go to television playlist. And I have it listed where I was on Don Lemon talking about this. We talked about chronic or daytime somnolence, okay, being sleepy during the day, which could be a sign of him being up. And if you watch the media or if you happen to follow him on Truth Social, but I've seen it reported in the media where he'll be up at night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., posting, which means he's not asleep during those hours. And if you don't get proper rest, 7 to 9 hours for most adults, then you're right. Then that will add to mental decline or in just general, your body not being able to heal well. That is the truth. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Member Miss Pauline.
Hi, Miss Pauline. Thank you for being a member.
His behavior is not normal.
And you know, and there was a group of neurologists, psychologists, 30 of them who got together. They are not Trump's doctors, okay? But they were making observations of his what appears to be mental decline. And they agree with you that his behavior is not normal. Now, I will make sure that I say this. I am not Trump's doctor. I have never examined him, so I could never actually make a diagnosis. What I talk about here is based on observation and what he's exhibiting signs of, right? Same thing with those neurologists and those doctors, and they acknowledge it. They're not his doctors, so none of us can sit here and say that he has dementia. We can't say that he, has these specific diagnoses, but what we can say is that he's exhibiting signs and symptoms, which his behavior is not, quote unquote, normal for someone who has, a proper cognition. What do I mean? Well, he up on stage, he'll be very forgetful, okay? And he'll go off into a tangent in his speaking. We'll call it tangential thought, where instead of just going from point A to point B to point C and then going to a closing, he'll go off into these tangents, quite bizarre actually. And that in some cases, and I'm not saying that he has it, but that can be, a hallmark sign of different mental decline. What other things happen? He just, in general, his judgment seems to be off and his executive functioning doesn't seem to be the best. That's an observation. Again, I'm not his doctor. I can't make a diagnosis, but I agree, to me and to many other neurological experts and physicians, his behavior does not seem normal. Mind you, he is the oldest president to have ever been inaugurated. His second term made him the oldest, and he's going to be 80 years old in a couple of weeks.
All right. Ms. Rosalind. Hey.
Hi there, Ms. Rosalind.
Short-term memory loss, some language difficulties.
Absolutely. So now you're getting into it, some of the signs of cognitive decline, short-term memory loss. And if any of you have family members or loved ones who are living with dementia, you might notice they might forget where their keys are, where they put their phone. They might, have a grandchild who's a young grandchild. They forget that kid's name. So things that they just learned, they might forget. But if you ask them what their first year of college was like, they'll remember in detail. If you ask them about their wedding day, they can tell you all the way down to the ground. Oftentimes they'll hold on to long-term memory, but they'll have short-term memory loss. Very good. You come on to the front of the class. Come on up here.
All right. Member Miss April, shout out to you.
April, thank you for being a member.
She says repeating yourself, mood changes, irritability, and the for forgetfulness that you mentioned.
Very good. Very good. And that repeating yourself is really something, because you'll find that patients with early dementia, when it's early enough, they'll oftentimes catch themselves when they're repeating it. So they might ask you a question. Hey, what time is, Sam's football game today? And you answer, okay, the game's at 3:00. They might come right back in a few minutes. Hey, what time is Sam's football game? And you say the game's, oh, I asked you that, didn't I? And early on, you still have enough memory and cognitive function to be aware that you're losing memory and cognitive function. And that's the time period, the early dementia, that actually is often the most difficult, when you watch a family member know just enough to feel embarrassed or shame for forgetting. But yes, patients with early dementia will oftentimes repeat themselves because they forget that they told you a story, or they forget that they already asked you a question. Yeah, that's really good.
All right. And then Zero, hello.
Hi.
Zero says sundowning. Added that to the list.
Ooh, yeah. So sundowning. Sundowning occurs when patients with dementia become delirious, or they get very confused, lose touch with reality. And it tends to happen at night when the sun is going down. And, it can be worsened when they're not in their own environment. Like if they're in the hospital and you got the lights on in the hospital, nurses coming in and out, it can make them paranoid that someone's coming to get them, that the nurses are trying to stab them, with the IV needles, or trying to poison them with the medications. It can happen even when they are in their own environments, where at nighttime they might not know where they are, might not know who you are, even if you're a family member, and they can really start to act out. Okay, just get very confused at night. And that is something that happens with dementia and cognitive decline. That's a very good one. Yeah. Not a good symptom. That's good of you to know that. And that's why you need to come on and join them at the front of the class. All right. Anyone else? And then we'll keep it up, moving on.
Yeah, they're some of the same things, Dr. Frita.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank y'all. But bottom line, if you suspect cognitive decline in yourself or in a family member, consult with your doctor, ask for neurological testing. That MOCA test that President Trump has is just one layer, okay? But in order to really know, it will require a neurological assessment, often by referral to a neurologist or to a brain health center. Okay.
All right. Do have a question, Dr. Frita, from our member, and it's been repeated by a couple other people. This is from Miss Allison. Hello.
Hi, Miss Allison.
What's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
That's very good. So dementia is the big umbrella to describe many conditions where there is cognitive decline and memory loss. And there are many types of dementia that fit under that umbrella. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. Okay, so dementia is the umbrella of cognitive decline, and Alzheimer's is a type. You also have Lewy body dementia. There are different types of dementia that you have. So oftentimes you'll hear people use the terms interchangeably, and that's just because Alzheimer's is the most common type. But Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Dementia is the overriding umbrella of memory loss, cognitive decline with different features. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Ebola. Let's talk about Ebola, because Ebola is a story that sadly, it just keeps growing. It keeps spreading. We know that now we have at least 1,000 suspected cases around the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 240 suspected deaths from Ebola. And yes, it is that strain, the Bundibugyo strain, which is not the typical strain of Ebola. We first had Ebola back in 1976, and in the DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, this is the 17th Ebola outbreak, but this is only the third time in these Ebola outbreaks that we've had the Bundibugyo strain, the second time in DRC specifically. There's no vaccine for this current strain, no FDA-approved treatment. The United States is no longer a part of the WHO, World Health Organization. The United States has essentially dismantled the USAID, which formerly was the world's largest foreign aid agency. We don't have that. And now we're making even more changes because the United States has made a plan that instead of repatriating the United States citizens to the United States if they get Ebola, in other words, we have people who are over there from the U.S., different healthcare workers, missionary workers who are in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Uganda. And in the past, like in the last Ebola outbreak, for example, 2014, if we had citizens who became infected with Ebola, we brought our citizens home, where we have the best biocontainment units, where we have the best healthcare systems, arguably. We took care of our own here. Well, now the United States government has decided to build a healthcare facility in Kenya. It could treat 50 people. And they said, hey, if we have someone who's infected, according to Senator Marco Rubio, and I quote, we cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola into the United States. And so it was our plan to send infected U.S. citizens to Kenya, and where, by the way, as of now, there are 0 cases of Ebola in Kenya. But we decided that we were going to send our people to Kenya if they're infected, just to keep them from coming here. Well, now Kenya said no. The High Court in Kenya said that If Ebola is too dangerous for America, it's too dangerous from Kenya. And so some law groups and some medical groups in Kenya have petitioned against us being able to use our quarantine facility in Kenya. Plus, the plan is for it to be for United States citizens. At least as it's been explained, it's for us. So even if some Kenyans were to get ill, at least as the way that it stands now, it wouldn't be to treat Kenyans. It would just be to treat us, the United States citizens over there. And one of the members of the medical union said that Kenya will not become a containment colony for a lethal pathogen that did not originate in Kenya. So we'll see what happens. The United States gave, or is planning to give, $13.5 million to Kenya for its Ebola preparedness. And so we'll see if money talks and the rest walks. But either way, they're speaking up over there in Kenya, the law groups, the medical unions, and saying our lives are just as valuable as the lives of citizens of the United States. So let's play this clip and we'll come and talk a little bit more about Ebola on the other side.
Dr. Free, we playing the one from about the U.S. and the Ebola, or the other one?
The one that specifically talks about Kenya. I think that's the first one. Yeah.
All Americans returning from 3 African countries will undergo mandatory enhanced screening. This Houston airport expects to average up to 50 screened passengers a day.
We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States.
In another sign of the growing African crisis, Uganda today closed its border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. The WHO has declared the deadly outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. For now, there is no vaccine.
Africa said this is part of the team that is working on the vaccine.
The Trump administration plans to set up a quarantine facility for Americans in Kenya. A former CDC official CBS News talked to called that move unethical and irresponsible because Kenya doesn't have the proper containment facility or much experience dealing with Ebola. One affected American missionary, Dr. Peter Stafford, has responded well in a Berlin hospital to antiviral and supportive treatments.
All right. So let me ask you this question. I want y'all to give me a germ emoji, like a little green splat germ emoji. If you were a healthcare worker, a volunteer, and you were over in the Democratic Republic of Congo or Uganda or South Sudan, or Brazil in that matter now, if you developed Ebola, would you want to be brought back here to the United States? Or would you be okay with the shorter distance to Kenya, which is 1,500 miles from the DRC, where they're planning to open the facility? Do you think it would be a good idea for you to go to Kenya for that healthcare facility? Or would you rather be brought back to the United States to be taken care of? And so answer that for me and tell me why. Like, tell me why you would or wouldn't want to go to Kenya. And you can also mention, do you think it's fair to Kenyans, especially if they're getting $13.5 million, even if they're not allowed to be cared for in the facility? So put a little germ emoji there and tell me what you think. Meanwhile, I'll tell you a little something else, some more updates on the Ebola outbreak, this Bundibugyo strain, where there are now 2 suspected cases in Brazil. There are 2 people in Brazil who traveled from Uganda, where there are cases and deaths, and one traveled from the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're in Brazil now, and they have some symptoms. And so this is hot off the press news. But if this is the case, that means now we're crossing continents, right? And don't forget, we have the World Cup coming up very shortly, where we'll have soccer players from all over the world coming here, including a soccer team from DRC. Yes, they are coming. They will be here, the soccer team from DRC. The plan is for them to go to Europe first, to isolate for 21 days, which I guess would have already started their isolation. Their quarantine. They're quarantined for 21 days. And then assuming that all of them test negative with no symptoms, then as of now, we're planning for them to come here. And quarantine and isolation, these are 2 terms that we tend to use interchangeably. There is a difference, though. You quarantine someone if you perhaps think they've been exposed, but they don't have symptoms and they have not tested positive, you don't have a confirmed infection, but you're quarantining them as an observation, right? Because you believe there's a chance they could become infected. Those, when we talk about the hantavirus, those 18 U.S. citizens who were on the MV Hondius and then were flown to the Nebraska to that quarantine unit, and then a couple of them came to Emory. Those patients did not exhibit symptoms, except for the one did, but they didn't test positive, right? Initially, when that doctor had tested positive, we now know it was a false positive. He was put in isolation. You are put in isolation when you're actually infected with the illness, and you're put in quarantine if they are observing you to see if you become infected. So quarantine versus isolation. All right. What answers do we have from you med heads? And please make sure you give us a like and a follow and a subscribe. We are giving evidence-based medical information here. And again, thank you, because here on the Dr. Frita channel, we have over 1 million subscribers. Can y'all believe it? I just can't believe it. I thank y'all. But yes, we have 1 million, and just keep on coming. Come on to the party. All right, Shador, any of our med heads have any comments on if they'll be like, sure, yeah, treat me in Kenya and goody. They should be happy to have us. What do they say here?
Well, no, Dr. Frita, not that at all. The consensus is pretty much what it is. Shout out to member Donna Michi. Hello.
Hey, Donna Michi, RN.
She says, of course, I want to be brought back to my country. Take me where the best care is, regardless of distance.
Absolutely. And I agree with you totally. And again, back in 2014, that's what we did. So that's when there was an Ebola outbreak in West Africa. That was the Zaire strain. There was a man from Liberia who reportedly didn't tell the truth on his travel screening. He flew himself to Texas, developed symptoms, got treated. 2 nurses also developed Ebola. He passed away, sadly. The nurses lived. But then we actually purposefully brought 7 Americans here who were infected with Ebola, and we took care of them here. And it was at Emory here in Atlanta. Okay. Woo. It was at Emory here in Atlanta, but we have the best biocontainment. We just have the best, okay? Arguably the best in the world. And so we repatriated our people. We brought them home. Who else?
I just anticipate. United States, just familiar with U.S.
Yeah. So you say you want to come home. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Pauline says, I would want to be brought back home to the USA, where we have the best healthcare and family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not to say that Kenya does not have very able physicians, definitely, but just based on technology and quite frankly, money, we do have, even by objective data, we definitely have better healthcare here when compared to Kenya. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Madam Butterfly.
Hi, Madam Butterfly.
Back to the U.S., we have intelligent physicians. However, they need to want to treat as well.
Yes. Yeah. So back to the U.S. And do know, please don't play. What I'm saying is in no way any kind of a shade to the Kenyan physicians. Very high intelligence. But just, the facts are the facts as far as money and access. And even the Kenyans and people who are in that KPMD union will say that they've had some strained healthcare right now. Nothing to do with their intelligence, but as far as our access and what we have as far as our research capabilities, our biocontainment, it just is what it is. We are a high income country for sure. And we just have the technology here. And so, yeah. And then the other piece of it, I'm curious if anyone said, if we said, and you heard Marco Rubio say, we cannot and will not allow cases of Ebola here, Kenya has 0 cases. Why is it okay for cases to go there and not here? Listen, I want y'all to check out. I did a short form content. It's here. It's here on YouTube. It's on other social media platforms as well, where I talk about how Kenya said no. And I go into some details about this whole Kenyan facility. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then remember, Dr. Frita, Miss Sheila.
Hi, Miss Sheila.
She agrees, wants to be treated here in the United States because the treatment is better.
Yeah, I agree. And I do appreciate, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, we've offered $13.5 million for the Kenyan response system. They've had a strained healthcare, money talks. And so this is going to be seen by the high court is going to make a decision. Okay. And it's possible that we will be able to utilize the facility in Kenya. Who knows? Maybe we'll end up giving more money. If you were in a government where you really could use money to build and strengthen your system, if someone offered you $13.5 million, or maybe take it up to 20 million, or maybe 30 million, we might be able to give them an offer they can't refuse. I still do like the fact that the law groups and the medical unions of Kenya have spoken up and at least have made it known. Don't play. Our lives are just as valuable as the lives of the people in the United States. So please don't trifle with us. So I at least do appreciate that pride, and it's true, especially given that our president has a history of calling countries like Haiti, Somalia, countries with Black people and brown people, he called them S-hole countries, you will recall. He did. And he, in a speech, said, oh, why can't we get more immigrants from Norway, from Sweden? He said that, the places where people tend to be white. Okay. He made it very clear. So that's probably another reason that they were offended. It's why I was offended. I'm like, are you thinking it's okay for people to go to this country in Africa because you think it's an S-hole country? Is that what you think? Anyway, so I'll keep you posted on what happens. And for those of you who still have questions about Ebola, make sure you check out the live Q&A that we did here. Oh my gosh. When I tell you we answer questions for over an hour, off the cuff, just spontaneously answering questions. There was a lot of information. Plus, if you go to my shorts here and my short form content on other social media platforms, I do a lot of Ebola updates where I explain you will be Ebola'd out in a good way. And then I've been on the Joy Reid show. I was on the Joy Reid show talking about Ebola there as well. If you go to my television playlist, I'll make sure I have that up for you. All right, please give us a like, follow, subscribe, share. Go to your WhatsApp, go to your GroupMe, go to your email, go tell it on the mountain. Let people know that we're here. We want them to know we're sharing evidence-based medical information. Myth versus fact. Let's play my favorite game, even though what I'm talking about is not my favorite subject, because we lost race car driver Kyle Busch, 41, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's the most winning race car driver that we've had. You know, he apparently was just really supreme in his field. We knew that he had pneumonia. We know that he passed away just last week at the age, or probably a couple weeks ago now on a Thursday, at the age of 41. He passed away. And now the autopsy has come back and the cause of death was pneumonia and DIC. Let's play this clip and then we'll talk some more. Oh, no, we're not playing the clip. No, we won't play the clip first. Let's first do the, should we do clip first or myth versus fact? Oh, what the heck? We'll do the clip first and then we'll do the myth versus fact questions.
We now know what caused the death of NASCAR legend Kyle Busch. Today, his race car, rebranded to the number 33, took to the track at the Charlotte Motor Speedway with a teammate behind the wheel. CBS's Lindsay Reiser joins us now with new details. Lindsay.
Good evening, Jerika. Today, the family of Kyle Busch revealed the NASCAR champion's pneumonia progressed into sepsis, a life-threatening condition.
Please rise and join us in a moment of silence.
NASCAR held a tribute for two-time Cup Series champion Kyle Busch at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, where he was supposed to compete this weekend.
Thank you.
The 41-year-old's family revealing severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications. Each year, at least 1.7 million Americans develop sepsis and about 350,000 die from it.
All right, let's go ahead and get started with myth versus fact. All right, so for those of you who are new, it's time. It's time to put on your thinking caps because I'm asking you questions in this myth versus fact segment. All right, myth versus fact statement number 1.
All right. If your fever breaks and you start feeling slightly better, that means your pneumonia is improving and the worst is behind you.
M1, if this is a myth. F1, if this is a fact. If that fever breaks, hey, you're ready. You're getting better. All right. Myth versus fact statement number 2, please.
Physical and environmental stress, such as extreme heat, intense physical exertion, and dehydration can significantly worsen as an existing respiratory infection and accelerate its progression to a critical state.
All right. M2, if this is a myth. F2, if this is a fact. Jack. Pencils down, pencils down. All right, med heads. I didn't give you much time. What do y'all say?
All right. Statement 1, if your fever breaks and you start feeling slightly better, that means your pneumonia is improving and the worst is behind you. Just anticipate, says a myth.
Oh. Even when the fever's gone, you think that doesn't necessarily mean you're better. Okay, just anticipate.
Marina agrees that is a myth.
Oh, hi, Marina.
Forever a thing agrees. Myth.
Forever a thing?
Yes.
I like
Forever
it.
a king. I'm sorry, forever a king.
Forever a king. Forever a
Yes.
king. Okay. Okay.
13,
All
Joy
right.
agrees that is a myth.
All right.
Members, Donamichi agrees,
Hi,
as well as Miss Sheila.
Oh, Sheila.
And Miss Andrea, day 1, agrees
Hey,
also.
day 1, Miss Andrea. Okay. Does anybody say it's a fact?
Joyously hopeful. Member as well. Hello.
All right.
She says a fact.
Hi, joyously hopeful. Yeah.
And Mickey says a fact as well.
Mickey says a fact. Because you know what? This is actually a myth. But I'm surprised that more people didn't get tricked, because common sense would tell you, you would think, hey, if the fever's getting better, I'm getting better. But that's actually called a false recovery in many states. And so y'all medheads think y'all are something smart. Okay, there's come on, we'll make some room. Everybody come to the front of the class. This is getting crowded up to the front. All right. But yeah, this is actually a myth. In the case of pneumonia and other forms of infection, oftentimes you will stop having a fever right before things turn for a worse. And this is what's going on. If your body is starting to get overwhelmed with the infection to the point where your system is going to be attacking you and not the infection, then right before you start showing these signs of sepsis, you might stop having a fever, and then you can head into multi-organ failure, or even DIC, where your body goes haywire, quite actually. And so this is what we now know happened with Kyle Busch. He started off having sinusitis, and then he had pneumonia. It had even, on a race very shortly before he became, before he passed away, he had called for a doctor, things of that nature. And so the pneumonia can then become, so pneumonia, of course, is infection in the lungs. It can become overwhelming and the bacteria can seep into your system. So then you can get bacteremia, bacteria in the blood. And then as your body is trying to fight the infection, some of these inflammatory markers that you have in your ability to fight the infection throw your different systems out of whack. It can cause you to have blood vessels that dilate to the point that your blood pressure drops to a dangerously low level. You get cardiovascular collapse. Meanwhile, you're still having the pneumonia, and you can really start having even more inflammation, pus in the lungs, to the point where you can't breathe. You get respiratory failure. So then you have respiratory collapse. And, with that low blood pressure and the infection, going haywire, you can develop kidney failure. You can get liver failure, you get multi-organ failure, and oftentimes your body temperature is not going to regulate the same that it would. And so just because the fever breaks, that doesn't mean that you're not sick. And a lot of people maybe will be sick, and then they say, oh, I don't have a fever. Okay, I'm not going to go to the doctor. They ain't want to go to the doctor anyway. But it's important to know that the fever is not the only marker of being ill. Yeah. All right, let's see what y'all got for myth versus fact. Statement number 2. Número 2.
Physical environmental stress, such as extreme heat, intense physical exertion, and dehydration, can significantly worsen as the existing respiratory infection and accelerate its progression to a critical state.
All right, what y'all got? M2.
All right, Dr. Frita.
What we got?
Sandy says a fact.
Hi, Sandy.
Madam Butterfly says a fact as well.
Butterfly.
Donamichi agrees.
Okay.
So does Joyously Hopeful.
Joy.
Regina says
Regina.
fact. Miss Sheila agrees. Mr. B, where is your response? Mr. B says myth.
Okay.
And what you know, Joe, who loves this game, says
Oh,
fact.
yay. What you know, Joe? I love games too. What you know, Joe?
He says fact.
Okay. All right. This is a fact. It's a fact. And let me tell you something. Going back to Kyle Busch, and this actually makes me sad because y'all know someone who was an athlete, a racer of his at his level. There was pressure to not be sick, right? You got money on the line, you got sponsors on the line. You just don't have time to be sick. But let's just talk about some of the environmental factors that very likely played a role in accelerating his pneumonia, even to the point of sepsis. And I hate to play Monday morning quarterback, but just for us to know, for us to learn. So yes, environmental factors definitely can worsen the situation. For he had those G4 forces, meaning when he's, racing around, he's got more pressure, more force on his body, like 4 times the force than what we normally do when we're just kind of in our cars or walking around. Imagine already having lungs that were filled with pus, where you already are having a difficult time breathing, and now put force, on those lungs. That can really accelerate things, right? And make your breathing worse. Also, if you have a very high temperature, that can accelerate the sepsis. He's out there breathing fumes, The different fumes that he's going to be exposed to can also worsen inflammation in his body, right? And just the stress in general. If he's moving around, flying from place to place, if his sleep cycle is thrown off, stress in and of itself can worsen your inflammatory response and really exaggerate the sepsis that you have. And so he just had multiple things working against him. And I just hate it because I know he has 2 young children. He has a wife, and he really meant a lot to the racing community. So bottom line, pay attention to your body. One of the first things that doctors say if they find out that you're sick, they say, oh yeah, get some rest. That's not just some anecdotal statement that's being thrown out. It's because your body needs to be de-stressed and to have rest in order to heal properly. It sounds like he was sick. He had called for the doctor, but of course his schedule was intense and he continued that schedule. And another thing to note, when we drive in our cars are made for us to feel comfortable, right? We've got air conditioning, we've got climate control. Some of us have seat heat, some of us have seat cooling. It's made for comfort. When he's driving in a car, Kyle Busch and other race car drivers, them people, they're not worried about him being comfortable. The cars are made to go fast, right? And so if they're hot, if they're uncomfortable, if they stress your body, that's not the point. And so, yeah, bottom line, environmental factors really can worsen sepsis. So take care of yourselves, And my condolences go out to his loved ones, to his fans, and certainly to his children. All right. Go ahead and give us a like, please. Y'all, those likes are important. So even if you're watching this for a smart TV, I appreciate you for watching. But can you go find your phone or your tablet or I don't know, can you like something on Apple Watch? I don't know. Whatever, wherever you can find it. Please give us a like. That helps us. And please share us. Share.
Dr. Bree, I ask a couple of questions regarding this pneumonia topic. This is from Madam Butterfly.
Hi, Madam Butterfly.
Will a pneumonia vaccine have helped possibly?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I'll put it this way. So for the pneumonia vaccine that you might be thinking of, he's actually too young for that vaccine to be recommended to him. He's not 50 years old. He's definitely not 60 years old. To my knowledge, he's not immunocompromised. I don't know his history. I'm not his doctor. And so in that sense, a pneumonia vaccine, perhaps it could have helped, but he wasn't even of the age. And let me just say this. I don't know what type of bacteria he had. It's being reported that he had a bacterial pneumonia, but I don't know if it was strep pneumonia or Haemophilus influenza, or if it was a pneumonia that is covered. And so could it have helped? Possibly, but assuming he wasn't immunocompromised, he was so young that even if he had gone to his doctor regularly, he was at an age that was younger than for the vaccine to have been recommended. The other part of that is that for the classic childhood immunizations, when we get, for example, Haemophilus influenza vaccines as kids, those vaccines do offer us protection from pneumonia, in many cases for a lifetime. And so assuming that he got his childhood immunizations, those could have protected him to a degree. Again, I don't know what kind of pneumonia he had. But yeah.
All right, thank you. And then Miss Sheila, our member,
Hi.
she says, what is walking pneumonia?
Oh, yeah. So when people talk about walking pneumonia, they're typically talking about like pneumonia with mycoplasma pneumonia, or a pneumonia where you might not be down and out and extremely ill, but you might just have maybe a little bit of fatigue, maybe a little bit of cough, and your doctor might just say, "Oh, let's just check out an x-ray just in case." And you are shocked because you're walking around relatively well, but then you have pneumonia. Yeah, so it refers typically to mycoplasma pneumonia, something that will cause you to have inflammation in the lungs, but you're not extremely ill like you are with typical lobar pneumonia that's caused by strep pneumonia, for example. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dr. Frita. Shout out to newest member, Miss Erica.
Hey, thank you for joining, Miss Erica. Thank you, thank you. And for those of you who are not members, first of all, I thank you for being here, and I thank you for supporting, and I thank you for giving us a like, hint, hint. If you would like to join our membership, we do have a good time. I definitely give you members only videos. Of course, you get your members shout outs. Hello. And we have the members only live Q&A that we're having today, right after we finish this live, where you can come. And I'm not doing all the talking. I'm just doing the answering. You ask me questions about yourself, about family members. And remember, what I provide is information. Okay. I'm not giving you diagnoses. I'm not giving you medical advice. Okay. I'm not telling you what to do for treatment. I'm giving you evidence-based medical information in the live Q&A. So come on over, click the link in the description, go to drfrita.com, the one-stop shop. All right.
Speaking of shout outs, Dr. Frita, a couple of shout outs real quick.
Okay.
Peace Oasis, as
Hi,
always. Hello.
Yay. Hi, Peace Oasis.
CT.
Hey.
Fine Fashions, new to us as a member. Hello as well.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate y'all.
And Quiet Storm.
Hi, Quiet Storm. Quiet Storm. Oh, that was like one of my favorite remixes of the song Tootsie Roll. Oh, let me get off of memory lane, because when I tell y'all, I used to get down to the Tootsie Roll, and when I was a Delta, back when I was 19 years old, and I was stepmaster, and we would have our step shows in the union. And by the way, we never lost a step show. Okay, well, I was stepmaster. Thank you very much. But when Tootsie Roll came on, I would stand still when the Quiet Storm version was on, and then when that bass hit. All right, let me come on back. Hey, everybody. All right, it's time for our second dose. Y'all know I can go down some memory lanes. Quiet Storm, that's your fault for having that name. Okay, thank you for being here. All right, it's time for your second weekly dose of trending medical headlines and celebrity health news. Can we talk about Ray J? Now, y'all know I have been on here, and after you finish this live, you can check out the videos I did on congestive heart failure, on what's going on with Ray J. He came to the front of the stage. He told us that he had months to live, that his heart was only working at 25%. We wondered if he was joking. We wondered if he was serious. Now we have had his mother, his manager to confirm what he said. You know, his mama is not playing around with y'all. At one point, she said his ejection fraction was 15%. And so we have no reason not to believe that he really has congestive heart failure, okay? Advanced congestive heart failure. So riddle me this. Why did Ray J hop himself into a fighting rink in a mixed martial arts and get knocked out? Let's play this clip. And y'all know I got love for Ray J, but I got to talk about him. All right.
Explain, I told you.
But I think he's doing this for like
He got knocked out and went in there. And I don't know, again, I'm not Ray J's doctor either. I don't know if his heart condition had anything to do with it or if he just got knocked out. I do know that if I were his doctor and he had an ejection fraction of 25%, I would not have him fighting. And I'll tell you why. But first, let me ask you this. And I want you to give me a heart emoji. Have you ever pushed yourself to do something, whether it was work, whether it was exercise, whether it was taking care of someone you had no business taking care of, whether it was driving a long distance? Have you ever pushed yourself even though you were advised by your doctor not to do it, or even advised by family members or your good common sense that it was too much on your body? Please put in the chat if you've done that, and tell me, what was it that finally made you click and stop and listen, if you stopped and listened and took care of your body? Okay, so give me a heart emoji. Have you ever pushed yourself to do something that you know you had no business doing? Ooh, and I'll answer the question myself. Okay, but first, let me talk about why, if I were Ray J's doctor, I would not have advised him with a 25% ejection fraction to get in the ring. And just as a recap, and again, you can go watch my video after you finish watching this live, but Ray J shared that he has a diagnosis of congestive heart failure, meaning that his heart does not pump effectively enough to push blood forward to all of his organs, okay? And if you have congestive heart failure, it can lead to symptoms like swollen legs, fatigue, things of that nature. But here's the thing. When you have a very low ejection fraction, because normally ejection fraction is anywhere from 50 to 70%. If you have a very low ejection fraction like his, that can put you at risk for having an arrhythmia, okay, an abnormal heart rhythm. And for that reason, just based on the surface knowledge that I have, I can tell you that I likely would not have recommended that Ray J go into the ring. That being said, I don't know what his doctor said. For all I know, he could have had a vast improvement in his ejection fraction. I have had patients who've had ejection fractions in the 20%, and they've jumped up to the 40% with proper treatment. So I don't know if that's the case for Ray J. But based on where he was and in the hospital, 25%, I would not have recommended that he got in the ring. And now he done got knocked out. So let me hear your answers. Has there been a time where you pushed yourself, you knew good and that, for example, if you had something like a procedure, but then you really want to go and you want to help out with the lawn and you're out there using a weed whacker, even though you might have just had a surgical procedure? That would be an example of pushing yourself when your doctors would have recommended not. Any examples?
Yeah.
Medhead?
All right, Tisha. Hello.
Hi,
Tisha says, yes, push to work out even though I was not fully well from a bad cold. Your body will stop you before your mind will. Learn the hard way.
Now, see, you are right. Oh, I did that in my younger days. Not now. Whew. But yes, your body will stop you sometimes. It'll make you listen if you don't listen. Okay, that's a good example. But yeah, you got to do that self-care and listen to your good mind, your good common sense, and your doctors.
Absolutely. Pam, hello.
Hi, Pam.
Pam says, working hard at the job, ignoring energy loss, and I end up in the ICU with a tube down my throat back in 2016. I'm a type 1 diabetic and always trying not to let it get me down.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing, because that's an extreme example. You ended up in the ICU. Well, I thank God that you are doing better now, it seems, but it's tricky with work, right? You want to make sure that you prove yourself to be valuable, prove yourself to be someone the team can't function without. And that can sometimes make you ignore your symptoms and then just push. And being a type 1 diabetic, which can have its limitations, making sure that you don't sit down and become depressed and say, oh, I'm just a sick person. Oh, I'm sickly. Proving to yourself and to others that just because you have a diagnosis, that does not define you. So I could understand where you could be motivated to push yourself. But I hope that now that you've had this experience, you understand that you have to respect the body and not push yourself to the point where you're stressed out, compromising your immune system, and ending up with a breathing tube down your throat. Thank you so much for sharing that. And listen, medheads, after you finish watching this live, I can't believe you brought this up with the type 1 diabetes. I literally just did a video yesterday where I explained the difference between diabetes type 1 and type 2, right? Because we talk about type 2 diabetes a lot. And so I'm glad that you just mentioned type 1, because a lot of people don't know the difference. So check out that short form content. I give it to you really quickly in 3 minutes. And it's on a lot of my social media platforms. Y'all follow me on all social media platforms, because you never know what's going to pop up on which platform. Okay, anyone else? And then we'll keep it pushing.
Yes, Regina says, unfortunately, realize I have to protect myself, care for myself like I would for others, and more so, hit a wall figuratively.
See, and that's an important realization. And I know I find for myself, the growner I get, and I still have to work on it, not being a people pleaser, not trying to just do for others just because you can. Sometimes you have to recognize that self-care is not selfish. The other thing is you have to figure out how not to care about what everybody thinks. My mama has always said, because I used to call her, still do, with all my woes and worries, and what does this person think, and what will that person think of me, and do they think I'm mean, and do they think this? My mama said, don't worry about what these people think about you, because the people you're worrying about are not going to pay your bills, and they're not going to cry at your funeral. Okay, so you have to worry about yourself. Okay, and in doing that, I'm not saying you're a selfish person, but what I'm saying is that if you don't do self-care and care for yourself, then you might not be around to take care of others. So you have to make those decisions that are best for you. Why do you think that when you're on an airplane and the flight attendants are telling you what to do in case you need oxygen, they say to the parents, adults, put your oxygen mask on first and then help those around you? If you don't pour into your own cup, your cup's going to be empty and you can't help anybody. Okay. All right. Who else we got?
Yep, a couple of us shared. This is from Ann. She
Hi,
says,
Ann.
yes, I was really after COVID. I had a respiratory infection and kept pushing myself to be with my mother before she passed. After that, I was told I needed to stay home and rest.
Okay. I'm sorry about your mama. Yeah. Ooh, and that's a tricky situation. I could see you trying to take care of your mama, but same thing still applies. You have to take care of yourself before you're able to take care of others effectively. Yeah, I'm sorry
And
about
then
your mama.
absolutely. And Dakala shared training
Hi.
for a 10K and didn't know I had blood clots in my lungs until I called my doctor. She called the ER to tell them I was on my way there.
I'm so happy you listened to your body and called your doctor. But it sounds like what you're saying is that even you might have had some symptoms even before you got to the point of calling your doctor, but you were pushing yourself. Listen, what she is describing, lifesaver, blood clots, most often in the lower extremities, like either in your femoral or your thigh veins, or in the popliteal vein, the vein right behind your leg. If you get a blood clot, it can dislodge, go to your lung. You get lung clots or pulmonary emboli, and it can take you right out of this world. Okay, you can pass away from something as simple as a leg clot. And so, what are some signs and symptoms to look out for? Redness of the legs, pain. Okay, like especially if you have like pain behind that knee, if that's where your clot happens to be, but it could be kind of anywhere in the veins in the lower extremities. You can get blood clots in the upper extremities as well. Swelling of the legs, especially if it's asymmetrical, if one leg is bigger than the other. If you have this and it starts showering off clots, you might get shortness of breath, fast heart rate. Call your doctor. Okay, these are some really good stories y'all have shared. Please keep putting them in the comments, and for those of you in the replay crew, please share, because I'm telling you, this is going to help other people. It's going to help other med heads. They might go and read the exact scenario that you described, and they might be somewhere pushing themselves, and they shouldn't be. So that's why I love this community. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for sharing. All right, but yes, take care of yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Ray J, I really hope, Ray J, that you make really good, positive decisions, and you make those decisions in conjunction with your medical doctors. And definitely, it sounds like, of course, your mother loves you. It sounds like that estranged wife look, that she still has love for you also. And your manager, listen to the people who care about you, listen to your doctors, Ray J, and make good decisions for yourself. And I certainly pray that he does well and didn't do any major damage and getting knocked out. All right. We're going to move. Give us a like as we talk about Attorney General Pam Bondi. I'm sorry, former Attorney General Pam Bondi, because she was fired by President Trump. But shortly after she was terminated, she had a diagnosis of thyroid cancer. She shared that now. And now she's had surgery. She's undergoing treatment. We're going to talk about thyroid cancer. Okay. And when we come back after this clip, I'm going to tell you the connection between thyroid cancer and GLP-1s like Ozempic, Mounjaro. Okay.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is currently recovering from cancer treatment. She tells me she was diagnosed with thyroid cancer after leaving the Justice Department in April. Since her diagnosis, she has undergone treatment, including surgery just a few weeks ago. Now, even though she is still recovering, she tells me she is doing well. Now, this cancer diagnosis comes in what has already been a difficult year for Bondi. President Trump fired her in April. She was replaced by her top deputy, now acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. And this week, she is scheduled to appear on Capitol Hill to answer questions from the House Oversight Committee about the Justice Department's widely criticized handling of the Epstein file.
All right. So certainly not wishing anything bad on former Attorney General Pam Bondi. But yeah, her legacy thus far is not the best, with the handling of the Epstein files. Some statements that she's made about, oh, we're going to share the Epstein files 100%. And now she's famously known for that hearing where she's being asked direct questions about things like the Epstein files. And she's saying stuff like the Dow is 50,000. And she's going to be, her feet are going to be held to the fire. For that. But certainly not wishing anything bad for her, but she, has been diagnosed with thyroid cancer and she's been treated as stated. Listen, we're going to talk about thyroid cancer right now, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to give me a butterfly emoji and tell me what you think some signs and symptoms of thyroid cancer might be. Yeah, y'all med heads, y'all think y'all so smart. Do y'all know this? What do you think some signs and symptoms of thyroid cancer might be? Give me a butterfly emoji and I'll tell you why I chose a butterfly. Madam Butterfly, you're here. I'll tell you why I chose a butterfly. All right. So let's talk thyroid. So your thyroid is that butterfly shaped organ in the front of your neck. It really is shaped like a butterfly. And it's responsible for making hormones that help to regulate your temperature, your metabolism, things of that nature, your heart rate even. And if you have a mutation or a change in DNA in your thyroid cells, it can lead to thyroid cancer, where the cells start multiplying, growing, and it can have different presentations like a lump or a nodule and some other signs and symptoms, which y'all are going to tell me. There are several different types. There's papillary thyroid cancer. That's by far the most common one. Like 90% of the thyroid cancers are papillary. And then there's some other ones. There's follicular, there's anaplastic. That one, patients don't tend to do so well with that one. And then there's medullary thyroid cancer. Ooh, what's the big deal about medullary thyroid cancer? Well, you may recall that when the GLP-1s first came out, like the Ozempic, the Mounjaro, now the Zepbound, Wegovy, and we've got some oral ones also. One of the black box warnings, the contraindications to taking a GLP-1, where the doctor absolutely recommends that you not take it and they won't prescribe it, is if you have a specific type of thyroid cancer, not all of them, a specific type, and that's medullary thyroid cancer. Okay. And you're at increased risk of having medullary thyroid cancer if you inherit a certain genetic condition called MEN type 2, multiple endocrine neoplasia type 2. And so if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, or if you have a personal or family history of MEN type 2, then sorry, GLP-1s are not for you, specifically with that type of thyroid cancer, medullary thyroid cancer. And that's the link between GLP-1s and thyroid cancer. Here is some good news. Some good news. The prognosis of thyroid cancer in general is fantastic. Okay. It's fantastic for most patients who are diagnosed with thyroid cancer will live a long time. In fact, the 5-year survival rate, or your chances of being alive after 5 years of being diagnosed with thyroid cancer, higher than 98%. Okay. And that's for most of them, like that papillary in those ones. The anaplastic one, it doesn't have as good of a prognosis, but it's not a common one. All right. So I do have some listen, y'all, I was on fire. I have some short form content I did. You'll be able to find it here. Okay. Right here on YouTube, also on some of my other social media platforms, where I give you a nice quick bite of information that you can share to help others to understand about thyroid cancer. And so what are some signs and symptoms? Black butterfly. What y'all say? Any butterfly emojis?
Yes, some butterfly emojis. Regina says sore throat.
Okay, yes, you can get a sore throat, and you can have pain with swallowing with thyroid cancer. Very good.
Miss Marilyn, haven't seen you in a while.
Hey, welcome back.
Being tired all the time, being sleepy all the time.
Okay, that can occur just in general with any cancer, right? Ooh, especially if it spreads. So just having some type of fatigue. All right, what are some other symptoms? Maybe some more localized symptoms of thyroid
So
cancer.
B says weight gain or loss.
So in dealing with, so let's separate out from cancer for just a second. If you're dealing with thyroid disease, like hyperthyroidism, that can be associated with an unintentional weight loss. And if you're dealing with hypothyroidism or an underactive thyroid, that can be associated with weight gain. With thyroid cancer, if it's just local, then unless you're having difficulty swallowing, or if, Lord forbid, it's spread to other systems, if it's spread or if you're having difficulty swallowing, then it could be associated with weight loss. Yeah, not a classic example for just localized thyroid cancer, though.
All right. Miss Sheila says voice change.
Boom, 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 Miss Sheila, come on up here. Yes, a hoarse voice. You can have a hoarse voice, specifically for different reasons. Okay, so the pressure of the thyroid, if you have thyroid cancer and it's making the thyroid larger, it can cause a pressure that can give you a hoarse voice. But also the thyroid cancer can invade a nerve that helps to innervate part of your speaking system. Okay, the cancer can invade nerves, and so yes, hoarseness is definitely a symptom of thyroid cancer. It can be. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's pretty good. All you want to answer is pain in throat, swallowing, and hoarseness.
That's good. Okay. Very good. Very good.
You mentioned, yeah. Nicole,
yeah.
she says a lump or nodule in the front of the
Lump
neck.
or nodule.
Pain in front of the neck.
Very good. Very good.
And a cough. She says a cough that does not go away.
That can happen as well. So you can get a cough, you can get hoarseness, you can get a pain, you can get a lump in your or a nodule. So it's just a good idea just to kind of pay attention to your body. Shoot, touch your body and know what's going on. And always, when in doubt, don't just figure it out at home. Go see your doctor. All right. So yeah, so Pam Bondi has had her surgery and she's being treated. And hopefully for her, she'll be among the more than 98% to have that excellent survival with thyroid cancer. Okay. And I know it's time. Listen, I might have to just go ahead and do this one in a reel or in some short form content, but I just have to mention real quickly Cynthia Bailey, wonderful housewife, Real Housewives of Atlanta model, who was very, very, very thin, when she first came on the scene as a supermodel, very thin when we first met her on Real Housewives of Atlanta, but she has gained weight over the years. She shared that she's gained 40 pounds. And now she's understanding it was related to menopause. Okay. And it is true when you are perimenopausal and certainly postmenopausal, the hormone changes, the drop in estrogen could cause a few things. One, it can cause a shift in your metabolism. Okay. You can get a slower metabolism. And any women here who are going through perimenopause or postmenopausal, you may have witnessed this for your own selves. And it can also cause a shift in where the weight shows up. You might have more abdominal fat. Okay. More abdominal fat. That happens as well. And so she talks about, Weight Watchers and actually taking a GLP-1, how that's helped her to lose weight in addition to lifestyle changes and being intentional. And so I'll just add one more piece to that and make sure you consult with your doctors. Talk about hormone replacement. There's been years where hormone replacement for women has been something that's been vilified. And we had, unfortunately, some poor studies just making conclusions that weren't actually applicable to the type of hormone replacement that we do. Now we've had large initiatives and studies, and we do recognize that hormone replacement therapy can be helpful in many ways. One, to help slow down some of that perimenopausal and postmenopausal weight gain, but also improving heart function, definitely bone health, mood, mood disturbances, anxiety, depression, quite a bit. And so, shouts out to Cynthia Bailey for sharing. I love her. I like watching her thrive. Beautiful person. And listen, I actually met her one time on a train on the MARTA when Amara was a baby. So child, that might have somebody was a baby. That might have been 15 years ago. Just, and my husband at the time went up to her because I was like, oh my gosh, I was starstruck. Yes, I was. And she took a picture with me. She was warm. Don't nobody feel like taking a picture after they've been on an airplane and on MARTA in Atlanta. But I will forever remember that, how even in the midst of travel, even when I'm sure she didn't want to be bothered, and I wasn't going to bother her, he went and bothered her. But when I tell you, she treated me with so much warmth and so much kindness. And I appreciate Cynthia Bailey for that. And I imagine that's probably her character and how she treats all people, because she didn't know me from anything and treated me with warmth and with kindness. Just wanted to say that. All right, y'all, that's it. We covered a lot. If you learned a little something, please give us a like. That's a free way to support the channel. And now I'm about to pop over. Ooh, members, I know y'all sick of me. I'm about to pop over for our members only live Q&A. It's not too late to join. Go quick.
Quick shout out to members Melissa and Ray of Sunshine.
Yay. Thank you, members. Thank you. All right. Listen, members, I'm about to answer your questions. I hope y'all got a bunch of questions for me ready. And for everyone else, I appreciate you for your support here. We'll see you next Monday, same bat time, same bat place. As always, this is Dr. Frita Live. We talked about the latest trending medical headlines and celebrity health news. I want to thank you for making Monday your healthiest day of the week.